Hi, I'm Lesley Canarium, Reader Conversations Librarian here at the Rogers Public Library, and I'm here with the November Take It, Make It Adult Craft Project. This time we're going to be making paper bead bracelets. It's not hard, but it does have a lot of steps, and almost all of them are things that you can apply to other craft projects. So, keep in mind how you might want to modify this for something else you want to do. So let's get to it. Everybody's going to get 2 pieces of scrap paper. They're not all going to look like this. Everybody's is going to be a little different. And what you're going to want to do to make your paper beads is to start out and cut strips this way. You can do this with scissors. I tried it. It works. But honestly, this is one of those projects where you might be happy to have a paper cutter if you've got one at home. So what you're going to do is want to take your pieces of paper and you're going to want to cut your strips, and depending on how wide you want your bracelet to be, they can be 3/4 an inch, an inch wide. I wouldn't recommend going much bigger than an inch, but you do want to make them all about the same size, though if they're not perfect, don't worry, it'll just sort of add to the vintage flair of your project. The important thing to keep in mind, all you're going to see of this paper, this pretty paper, is like maybe 1/2 inch on one end of it. So some of the papers you're all going to get, it's got this, like this one, it's going to be the same on either side, so it doesn't matter. Some of them will have different patterns, so you're going to want to think about which 1/2 inch you want to be showing. So I'm going to do 3/4 inch strips. So I'll just line them up here on the paper cutter. Everybody got different kinds of scrap paper. They're different colors, but they'll all coordinate nicely. You can use any paper you like, of course. I know a lady who used to take the paper programs from weddings, and then she would make little tiny paper beads out of them and turn them into jewelry and give them as gift to the bride. And you're going to cut a bunch of these. You'll end up with a couple of dozen strips. Then we're going to start turning these strips into beads. Now, I'll tell you flat out, you're going to get glue on you doing this. Let's not pretend we're not. So I just have a damp paper towel and a dry paper towel next to me so I can clean my fingers as I go. Everyone gets a bunch of these perfectly ordinary toothpicks. You can use kitchen skewers if you want a slightly bigger hole in your bead. It's up to you. The edge you want to show, you're going to want at the top, and just start rolling. What I found works pretty well if you do this twice. You don't want your bead to be so tight that it falls off. You don't want it so loose that it doesn't stay together either. So I'll do it once. Make sure you're going on the fat part in the middle, because if you try and go on the pointy bit, it's going to make a funny shaped bead. If it gets off track, just straighten it out as you go. And when you get a couple of inches toward the end, just smear some glue there on the end, clean your finger on the paper towel. Get it all nice and straight. Hold it while you count to 10, just for a few seconds so it doesn't start unraveling. And everyone got either a whole block or a half block. Stick that there to dry. So after you've made sure that your beads are completely dry, and I personally did these projects over the course of days, but I don't think it'll take much more than 10 minutes, you're going to want to put a sealing coat on them. So the easiest way to do that is, once again, take your glue. Just mix ordinary craft glue with just a little bit of water, just a few drops, just enough so it spreads nicely. Take your paintbrush, and you're going to want to paint all over, give it a nice coating. Make sure you pop it up a little so it's over the edge of the toothpick, and make sure you get the end of the bead there. You don't want to get the bottom of the bead, because otherwise you'll be gluing it to the toothpick, and that will make you sad when it comes time to take it off. Make sure it's good and dry. You don't want to get stuck to your fingers for the next step, which will be, you'll pop the bead off the end, flip it over, and just holding it into place, give it a nice second coat. And after you've done all your strips, Set them up to dry. You'll end up with a nice little hedgehog full of pretty shiny beads. You want to make sure they're good and dry. So you'll have your set of beads and a button and a piece of string. Take your string, fold it in half. You want to make sure that you've got enough space to make a loop around your button, because this is how you're going to fasten it at the end, and tie a knot. Get it good and tight. Take one of your beads, and you're going to feed one end of your string through one end, the other end of your string through the other end. This is why you don't want to wrap them too tightly around the toothpick in the first place, because otherwise it's kind of hard to poke it through. Pull this tight. You want that knot right about in the middle of the bead. You can fuss with it a bit as you get more beads on. Then take your next bead and do it again. This cord that you have in your kit is pretty stiff, so it shouldn't be a problem feeding it through the beads. If you do find it doesn't quite work, or you want to try it with the embroidery thread, you can either thread it on quilting needles, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like, or you can even dip the ends of the cord in glue and let it dry, and that'll make them a little stiffer and easier to poke through. You can see this one's a little stubborn. There we go. Pull the cord tight. Not too tight, just enough so that everything lines up nicely. And you're just going to keep doing that with your couple of dozen or so beads. So I'll get to one that's almost finished so you can see how we'll finish it off. As you can see, I used yellow embroidery thread just for a slightly different look. And I put my embroidery thread on quilting needles. Since it's not as stiff as the cord, that makes it a little easier to poke through. Also, and this is another thing you can do as a sort of a variation on this project, instead of using the decoupage style glue to coat these, I used clear nail polish, which surprises nobody who's seen any of these videos before. I love crafts with nail polish. It will give you a slightly shinier effect, but also be aware, as you might be able to see on these beads, it will yellow slightly as it dries, which I kind of like, because I think, once again, it gives you sort of that antique look. Just be aware that's going to happen. There's so many different choices you can make while doing this project. Okay, there's all the beads. That's all the bracelet put together. You can see there's a little bit of variation in size, but that doesn't hurt anything. Now that I've got all my beads on, I'm going to tie a nice, strong double knot to hold everything in place. And now I'm going to want to measure this against my wrist. I've got skinny wrists, so you can see that using all the beads just about fits around my wrist. Actually, there's a little extra. Some of you are going to have thicker wrists, or you might be making this for a present for somebody who has a thicker wrist. So you'll need a little extra thread at the end. And I'll take my button, thread it through all the holes. Okay, I want this to be tighter because, like I said, I don't need the extra string on mine. So I'm going to snug it right up there. And I'll do that with one thread. And I'll take the other thread and do it again just to make sure that button is securely in place. Tie it nice and securely. Tie it one more time for good luck. Snip the ends. And you can see there, we have a nice antique looking bead bracelet. And that's all there is to it. And I hope you have fun putting this together and thinking of different things you can do with your paper beads. Next month, we're going to be doing a little holiday decor and be making flannel holiday trees.